Hello everyone, so today I'm going to do another recipe of things that I would eat on my weight loss journey, and today we are going to have applesauce. I'm making applesauce for one, because it's pretty much just me. But I'll give you the proportions, how they kind of double out. So, obviously you'll need an apple, which I just dropped. Oh. It's just as well, because I get my fruit for applesauce from the bruised fruit expired area, whatever. So that's one of those. These are dried cherries, which I'll be adding. That's a giant friggin' thing of sugar. I'm just adding a tiny, tiny bit of sugar. Salt, cinnamon, and it needs a little water. So I'm going to chop the apple and get the cherries out, and I'll come back in a minute when this is a little more further along. Alright? Okay, so I got the apple all cut up, and I'm just putting it into my little saucepan. Ideally, have a little saucepan, or however much you're making, with a lid. It'll definitely help. You won't have to keep playing with water and everything. So, there go the apples. And I measured out a teaspoon of sugar. An apple's about 80-ish calories. A teaspoon of sugar is 15, so it's 100 right there. A tiny whiff of cinnamon. I'm doing this with cherries. Cherries and cinnamon aren't a bad mix, but they're not, a common one. So just a little cinnamon. And a tiny, tiny bit of salt. I mean, a few grains, if. Put salt in everything. And the last thing, not the last thing, second to last, about a quarter of a cup of water. So I use a quarter cup of water to every apple. So if I was doubling this, half a cup and so on and so on. I also measure out, because I'm making cherry applesauce today. These are dried sweetened cherries. They taste very much like a fruit roll-up. And I'm going to take, let's see here, about a quarter cup or so. This is 400 calories a cup for dried fruit. Y'all know dried fruit's too sweet for its own good. So I'm going to put that in as well, because we're having cherry applesauce. So a quarter of a cup is about 100 calories. And with the sugar and the apple, we're at 200 here. So that's not bad. Again, if you wanted to just make regular applesauce, leave the cherries out, and you'll have about 100 calories worth. I want some more, actually, because that wasn't totally full. Don't we love lying to ourselves? Okay, now that everything's in, I'm going to turn the heat on to medium and put the lid on. And keep an ear out for when it starts to bubble, because then we're going to go ahead with the next little bit, which is pretty much just the cooking of it. Okay. Alright, so it's been about 2 or 3 minutes, and I can hear it starting to make noise. That's the water in the bottom. These apples are going to put out liquid on their own, and the cherries are going to kind of dye it red, purple. So that's where we're at. So I'm going to put the lid back on. I'm going to take the heat down to almost low. And I'm going to start... Now, this is where you can play with stuff. Some people want, baby food, and some people don't. I'm going to go 20 minutes on this. And then we'll see where we're at. I'll come back in 10, and we'll see what's going on. All right, bye. All right, we are at 10 minutes, and we're going to take the top off and take a peek. Smells good. All right, so let's see where things are at here. All right, not bad, not bad. It's turning pink in the bottom. The cherries are plumping up. The apples are getting soft. Now, I left the skin on the apples because I'm a fiber junkie, so anytime I can leave the skin on anything and still eat it, that's what I do. So, that's your call, too. This is also where some troubleshooting will come in. We're at 10 minutes. Every apple's different, obviously. This one seems to be softening up just fine, but they're a little spongy. So, I'm going to put that back, pop the lid back on, and we're going to go for the rest of the 10. I don't want to turn the heat up, and then we'll take a look. Okay, bye. Alright, we got about 8 seconds left on this, and that'll be 20 minutes. So, it's close enough, I suppose. And let's take a look at what we got. Alright, so let me test and see These are sufficiently mushy. Again, it depends on what you're going for. Let's see. Yeah, that's mushing up a little bit. Okay. So at most of these points you could stop. You could have stopped before the cherries. You could stop now and just eat this, and it'll be kind of like pie filling or something. If you want it chunky, what you can do is take a whisk and start to go in there and just mash stuff up. The ones that are tender will start to give. So that's all sorts of good fun. And they'll give. It does take a little bit though. And it probably takes 2 hands. So I'm going to finish mashing this up. And then we'll come back. And I'll show you, after this is mashed, the last preparation. If you prefer. Okay. Alright, we are sufficiently mashed. Now that's if it's done by hand with just the whisk. And like I said, I left the skins on, so you're going to see the skins in here. They're kind of tender, so you can eat them. Also at this point, if you wanted something sweeter, you could add some Splenda. Or something like that. I've done Splenda before and it's been good. So, again, you could stop right here. And there you have chunky, almost pie-filling type stuff. But what I'm going to do is grab my immersion blender, which is a fabulous tool. I imagine there's 3,000 other things that you could use to puree this, but this is what I have. I don't have a blender. So I'm going to hit that with that, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the final product. Bye. Alright, and this is the finished product. Now, again, you can see the skins. So, and they're tender. Definitely feel free to peel the apple. Now, if this is too chunky for you, you could leave it on the stove probably another 10 minutes, and it'll, like, really get the apples down to nothing. It's good. Now, for pairings, there's a couple things I would have it with. Oatmeal. Make some oatmeal. Little cinnamon, little Splenda, whatever, put it in the bottom, and then put the apples on top. It's very good. You can crunch up one of these on top, and if you heat the applesauce first, it'll give you, like, the memory of apple crisp, kind of, sort of. And the last one I'd pair it with is Greek yogurt. Whatever ones you like, I would have it cooled and stir it in. If you have non-fat, plain, which is nauseating, sometimes adding something to it helps. So, is this any better than store-bought applesauce? I'm going to say there's a little more fiber, and the cherries are sweet, and you can taste the homemade. It may not be pretty, but is good. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with y'all soon. Bye.